Tony Stark is one of the most important characters in the history of the MCU, but it doesn't feel like he's an important character in Marvel Comics. They seem to treat him very poorly as of late. And this week in Devil's Raid #2, it did not sit right with me. I did want to talk to my good friend Drew from Comics Elite about his thoughts on maybe Tony Stark currently and where did this all go wrong? How you doing, Drew?
I'm doing great, and this is a good discussion about Tony Stark. I'm very anxious to talk about this because, it's great when you have a perspective on something, you wonder if everyone else feels the same way about something about it like you do. So I'm very curious.
What's interesting is at the end of Devil's Raid, when I did my review here on the channel, I said, why is Tony running for mayor? They should have Luke Cage run for mayor. He just had the big speech. It would make sense. So they do that. Okay, it makes sense within the story. But the reasoning that they give behind it, they don't have Tony do the right thing and say, you know what, Luke, you showed a tremendous amount of leadership. I've already got all this other stuff going on. I think you should do it. They actually had Luke Cage and Jessica Jones and other Marvel superheroes go up to him and say, we don't think the optics would be good if a rich guy ran against another rich guy. So we're kicking you out and we're putting Luke Cage in. I understand that a lot of people don't like rich people. It's not like Tony Stark is out there, using his money to dig up blood diamonds in Africa or something. Yeah. He stopped making weapons. He invests his money in technology so he can save the world. It's not like he's not altruistic with the wealth that he has.
It's amazing for about almost 50 plus years of the character. He has been wealthy. He's been a millionaire, a billionaire. It had never been a problem until recently, last few years. And we really saw these elements from Chip Zdarsky in the Daredevil run when he brought it up. What have you done recently?
I'm going to need you to buy this entire neighborhood because you're rich and
yes.
There's nothing you could do better with your money.
Yes.
So we can charge the people less money and you can get no return on your investment. Of course, That's how you become a billionaire, is to make poor investments and then undercharge people for rent. It's such a weird thing. Tony's not an aspirational hero. He's not Captain America. And he's certainly not, he's not Superman, but he's not the Punisher either. He's done some really good things, but it feels like ever since Civil War, when he was essentially cast as the villain, he's the one that sides with the government that's fighting against Captain America and the other heroes that don't want to sign up for the Superhero Registration Act. He's never been able to recover. Like, he's got this weird thing over him. I don't know if it's the direction that they just want to take the character, or if it's the writers that just can't accept that Tony Stark, yes, he is a rich playboy. He's a billionaire playboy. Yes, he has had a drinking problem in the past. He's not squeaky clean, but that doesn't make him a villain. It just makes him a bit of a flawed hero.
No, and I think they did realize with Civil War they had gone a little bit too far with the character. Matt Fraction did try to reel it back in with his run, which I thought was pretty solid. But after that, when he took him into space, they retconned his whole past like he's actually a half alien baby, and then
I thought he was an orphan.
Yeah,
he was adopted.
Bad decision. And
I'm so tired of the Tony Stark isn't real story arc where it's a revelation that he's actually a computer program, that the real Tony Stark died years ago. They just keep putting him in robot bodies. Like, I don't know why they keep doing that one. Dan Slott's Iron Man run sucks.
Yes, it did. It was terrible.
And the culmination is Iron Man 2020, which is essentially that stupid Tony Stark is a robot story arc. And it plays out and it plays into the orphan stuff and his real brother. But you get in this Christopher Kent Wrightwell, Iron Man series, and you're like, well, he's going to rehab the character. The first issue is a little bit interesting. Like, okay, Tony's down on his luck. Anytime he tries to do something good, it doesn't work out well, and public opinion kind of turns on him or whatever. Like, he's unlucky right now. That's an interesting way to go. But then you get into issue #2. He ends up like saving these scientists. He almost dies and loses his arm. And he's sitting up in a hospital. He's probably got his arm fractured 1,000 times. And Hellcat's just nagging him about his privilege and stuff. It's like, this dude just literally saved people. What are you doing?
I could not believe that. And Sean and I would call it, this is the Hellcat series. It's not the Iron Man series. It's more focused on her than Tony. These writers at Marvel, a lot of them have problems with people who have money, because clearly they don't like millionaires. They don't like people who have money. They think they're all bad. So what better way than to embarrass them, humiliate them, and...
Yeah, it's strange. Obviously, we saw in Batman, James Tynion, for no reason, he said, well, we want to bring Bruce Wayne back to his roots, so we're gonna take all of his billions away. He's only going to be a billionaire, and we're going to revitalize the character. He just took his money away so we could say he wasn't a billionaire and he wasn't writing like a billionaire hero. He literally did nothing with the storyline.
I felt it was more of like a reparations thing, because that money went to Lucius Fox. Lucius Fox took all the money, and it's like, wait a second here, what's going on here? So it's okay for him.
He wouldn't give it back. He's like, nah, I'm not giving you your money back. It was like,
yeah, it's like, so it's all right that Lucius Fox has it, not Bruce Wayne, because clearly he's never done anything right or well with the money at all. He's always been irresponsible, clearly, apparently, according to Lucius Fox. It is very clear these writers have a gross misunderstanding of economics.
Well, certainly, you know, we saw also in Nightwing where it turns out Alfred was a billionaire.
Yes.
Nobody knew it. And then he left the money to Dick Grayson. And Dick Grayson's like, well, now that I'm a billionaire, I'm going to solve every problem by throwing money at it. You're like, well, this guy grew up in a billionaire household. He probably has an understanding of how these things work. This seems quite naive on his part.
Yes.
But it just felt like Tom Taylor wanted to let everyone know if he were a billionaire, he would solve all their problems with his money.
Does not understand how economics work. You know, it just, if every millionaire did that, it's like they would just be throwing their money away. Nothing would be solved. Nothing would be fixed. It doesn't matter. I think there are actually some comic book stories, honestly, about this, you know, and I think Batman the Animated Series touched upon this. It wouldn't help. It doesn't, you know, just they're doing it the best way that they can. And Dick Grayson, he is a very smart character. He was raised by Bruce Wayne after he was adopted by him, but went to exclusive elite schools where I'm sure he learned accounting, economics, and where he should have known better. Like, no, stuff like this does not work.
Just as a reader, it just takes you out of the story. You're like, what the hell are they thinking?
Yes.
Because there is, within Devil's Reign, a logical progression. Why is Tony running for mayor? It should be Luke, because he does something in the story that would warrant him stepping into that position, and Tony hasn't.
Yeah, but the way they deliver it, it's like clearly he have a problem with Tony Stark.
It's to demean the character. It's to make him look bad and to put him in his place, to say, sorry, billionaire.
This is Chip Zdarsky's, you know, this is him putting himself into the comic. He's got a problem with millionaires and billionaires. This is not the first time.
There's an ominous look to Tony when he goes along with it, that it appears that he's not okay with this.
Yes, yeah.
We know that he was the de facto villain in Civil War. Devil's Reign feels like a scaled-down version of Civil War, and they keep referencing Civil War time and time and time again in the comic book itself. There's a very meta take on it. Almost looks like he's going to be fighting with Wilson Fisk against these guys, and they're going to do it to him again.
It should anger the Marvel fan. It should anger the Tony Stark fans. He has been the whipping boy for the longest time, just at being the villain. Can we just get? We need a back to basics approach with Tony. This is bad what they're doing with Tony.
Well, I feel bad for these characters all the time. Specifically, you know, when you have an investment in them and in the universes and whatnot.
Absolutely, years of investment, money put into the characters as well, and then you see this happen to them. It's like, what made them think this was a good idea? We
talked about Tom Taylor, Chip Zdarsky, but really, I don't even think it's a them problem. I think it's an editorial problem. If you're the Avengers group editor that's responsible for the Avengers book, then, you know, Captain America and Iron Man and whatnot, you're literally getting paid to protect the IP and to make sure that the characters stay true to themselves. And if they're going to do something that deviates from it, you're probably going to end up back to square one before you leave. There's no oversight that's really going into these characters and making sure that they make sense. Because if someone is an enormous fan of Iron Man from the MCU and they come into this stuff, you're not going to recognize Tony Stark anymore. And it's an invitation to walk away, not come in and explore more Tony Stark Iron Man.
Why should I give you my money when I want to read about this character being a hero, when I'm going to see him being portrayed as a villain? And these editors need to be held accountable. If it mostly is them, if it is, they need to be held accountable for breaking these characters.
No one comes into a comic shop for the very first time and is like, ooh, where's the latest Chip Zdarsky comic?
Yes.
You know, if you're not a comic reader, you don't know who he is. No one's going in there like, James Tynion, you know, I've always wanted to read his Batman. Nobody's going into these shops just cold turkey and looking for a Tom Taylor comic. They're looking for the heroes. And for some reason, DC and Marvel are just allowing their creators, they're putting their voices into the characters, and it's really causing weird versions of these characters. And, you know, DC's got the worst problem with Batman because there's so many of those comic books. But over here at Marvel, you're only going to see Tony Stark in Avengers. You're going to see him in Iron Man. And then perhaps if there's a crossover event, you'll see Tony Stark there. You kind of have to get him right every time.
Yes, and you brought up a very interesting point. These writers are putting themselves into the characters. which is, like you said, producing mirror versions of these characters, which are not the characters at their core. And it seems to be a gross misunderstanding of what the concept of what a hero is. These writers are taking it as like what the writers think a hero is according to them and their worldview, and putting those worldviews into the characters. And it's like, no, this is not right. Your view on what a hero is, what Tony Stark should be, is askew and not right.
Being wealthy does not preclude you from being selfless.
No, it doesn't. No, because we learned that in the first. I mean, anyone learned that in the first Iron Man movie. Anyone can learn that just right there.
Well, you learn that in the real world. There are people that are very well off that help everyone out, and there are poor people that aren't helping people out, that they're very selfish. Yes, and that's not across the board either way. Different people, depending on their personalities, they're going to use their means in different ways, and it gets so frustrating when you see this continuously happen to Tony Stark. He's a fantastic character. After the MCU and the success of Robert Downey Jr. with the character, he should be A-list right now. And the only thing standing in between that character and being A-list at this day are Marvel Comics themselves, and they probably missed the window to really capitalize on that. And if there's probably a lot of Tony Stark fans that are out there going, there was a chance that he could have been the second most important character in the entire Marvel Comics universe behind Spider-Man.
Right now, I think Marvel has acknowledged the boat has passed. The ship has passed with Tony and Robert Downey Jr. They don't have to worry about him. Most of these comics, I guarantee you, they're selling is for the covers, like the Alex Ross covers.
Alex Ross covers.
Yes, I mean, I know it firsthand in our store at Comics Elite. People are buying them for the Alex Ross covers.
It's just something I wanted to talk about. We saw it in Devil's Reign again. It's just a story that keeps playing itself out over and over again.
It's getting very tired and very old, it's just like a Foghat concert. It's getting very predictable and played out and very not fresh.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.